$85 a pound. That is where uranium closed the week. And it is not the number that matters.
Right, because the screen is, well, it's practically asleep. We are looking at a market that is just consolidating in this highly compressed range, while the structural fundamentals underneath are accelerating at a velocity that the spot price simply isn't capturing.
Exactly. So, welcome to the Uranium Unleashed Week in Review Deep Dive. It is Saturday, June 20th, 2026. And we're looking at the trading week of June 15th through the 19th.
And there is a lot to cover.
There really is. The divergence we are seeing right now between the spot screen and the physical supply chain is, it's arguably the most severe dislocation in the energy markets today.
Oh, absolutely.
So for you listening, our mission today is to really dig into this theme of spot consolidates, structure accelerates. And to understand this market divergence, we have pulled together just a massive stack of sources.
A literal mountain of reading.
Right. We've got market data from Trading Economics, insights from Sprott's 2026 Uranium Outlook, policy and supply chain reports from Power Magazine, plus data from the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission.
Not to mention the corporate updates.
Yeah, exactly. Updates from Cameco, Urenco, and Centrus. And then, well, we have to talk about the geopolitical side, so we're bringing in reporting from Al Jazeera and the Times of Israel.
Which is going to be a crucial part of the conversation later on.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the most glaring contradiction in the market right now is, well, it's that spot price.
Yeah, the $85.
Right. So uranium U308 spot closed the week roughly flat at approximately $85 to $86.10 per pound.
Barely moved.
Hasn't moved at all, really.
Right.
It has been stuck in this very narrow consolidation range, like $83 to $87 since early April, cooling down from that massive Q-on spike that reached into the high 90s.
And that price, it tells us the real action is just not on the spot screen right now.
So what does it tell you?
Well, the framing Sprott uses in their 2026 Uranium Outlook is this idea of a tale of two markets. And it is playing out perfectly in the data.
How so?
So you have front month spot, which looks like it's having a lost year, right? It looks trapped. But then when you look at the term contracting market and you look at the capital flowing into mining equities and downstream infrastructure, institutional positioning is aggressively long.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second. If demand is supposedly booming and everyone is aggressively long, why is the spot market completely sleeping?
Because of the leverage utilities are using.
Right. Look at it this way. It's like a neighborhood knowing a massive historic blizzard is coming. Right.
I like this analogy.
Right. But instead of rushing to the grocery store today to buy bread and milk, everyone is just sitting on their couches, looking out the window, trying to wait for a discount. It's a massive game of chicken.
That is exactly what it is. The utilities are deferring. They are deliberately delaying their spot purchases because they are entirely comfortable working down their legacy inventories.
Just burning through what they have in the pantry.
Exactly. But the counterparty to that strategy is the mining sector. And the actual miners are operating on a strict value over volume mandate now.
They aren't going to flood the market to lower the price.
No, not at all. The producers have the upper hand here because the global mine supply is, frankly, precarious right now.
Precarious is putting it mildly. Let's bring in the hard data to show why the producers have that leverage. Look at Cameco.
Yeah, the McArthur River joint venture announcement.
Right. They had to reduce their 2025 production guidance down to 14 to 15 million pounds.
Down from 18. That is a huge cut.
It is. And the reasons they gave point directly to the friction of getting these pounds out of the ground. They cited slower than expected ground freezing and localized labor constraints.
And I think people gloss over what ground freezing actually means in the Athabasca Basin.
Oh, it's wild. You're dealing with water-bearing sandstone that surrounds a super high-grade deposit. You can't just dig a hole. You have to pump super-cooled brine deep into the earth to literally freeze the groundwater solid so the mine doesn't flood.
Right, and the thermodynamics of that process do not care about your quarterly earnings calendar.
Exactly. If the ground doesn't freeze as fast as your model predicted, or if you don't have the highly specialized labor to manage that thermal infrastructure in northern Saskatchewan, those pounds stay in the ground.
Now, Cameco did note that slightly stronger output from Cigar Lake might offset that shortfall by a bit, but it highlights the operational fragility.
It really does. And we see the exact same thing with Kazatomprom, the world's largest producer.
Oh, the Kazakhstan situation is arguably even more structurally significant. They just cut their 2026 output guidance by 10%.
Which is what, roughly 8 million pounds?
Yeah, about 8 million pounds, which is basically 5% of global primary supply just vanishing from the forward curve.
It's just gone. And they cited changes at their Budanovskoye joint venture, but the really critical bottleneck they mentioned is sulfuric acid availability.
Right, because they use in situ recovery mining, ISR. And ISR is entirely dependent on the chemical supply chain. You need vast oceans of sulfuric acid to dissolve the uranium out of the host rock.
And if you don't have the acid, your well fields just sit there doing nothing.
Exactly. The spot market is stuck in this stalemate, but the upstream constraints are very real.
Which means, if you are listening to this and you want to know what is actually moving, you have to look downstream. Which brings us to the 3 defining stories of the week.
Let's get into them.
Story number 1. On Thursday, June 18th, Oklo signed a memorandum of understanding with Standard Nuclear to explore plutonium recycling pathways to feed advanced reactor fuel.
And on its face, this looks like a really small private company deal.
It does. But why is it our lead story today?
Because of the implication for the hyperscalers. This is the clearest signal yet that hyperscaler-backed advanced reactor developers companies, fueled by the power demands of Meta and Microsoft and the AI boom, are no longer waiting for the government.
They're tired of waiting.
Exactly. They're not waiting for legacy enrichers to solve their HALEU supply problems. They are integrating backward into fuel security themselves.
Wait, really? A private tech-aligned company is going to try to recycle plutonium.
That's what the MOU is exploring. High-assay, low-enriched uranium, or HALEU, is the fuel these advanced microreactors need. And the commercial supply chain for it in the West just isn't there.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because this private sector desperation is happening at the exact same time as massive, massive moves in the broader Western enrichment build-out.
The scale-up happening right now is historic.
The U.S. Department of Energy just deployed $2.7 billion in task orders to fix this exact bottleneck. $2.7 billion.
It is a staggering volume of capital. Let's break down where that money is actually flowing.
Yeah, let's go through the list. Start with Centrus Energy.
So Centrus just secured a $110 million contract extension through June 2026 for their 80 LEU Phase 3 project in Piketon, Ohio.
And they've actually been delivering, right?
Yeah, they have successfully delivered over 920 kilograms of HALEU to the DOE. So they are proving the technology.
Okay, what about Urano?
Urano is a huge piece of this. They received $900 million to accelerate Project Ike in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
$900 million just to accelerate it.
Right. This is going to be a massive new commercial gas centrifuge plant. But the one that really stands out, technically speaking, is General Matter.
Oh, the Paducah project.
Yes. General Matter is a startup, and they were awarded $900 million to rebuild the Paducah site in Kentucky.
But they aren't mining new uranium, are they?
No, and that's the fascinating part. They are using a novel technology to take thousands of cylinders of legacy uranium hexafluoride, basically the depleted tails left over from the Cold War, and re-enrich them.
So they are essentially mining the waste.
Exactly. Because primary supply is so tight, the economics have shifted. It now makes financial sense to squeeze the last remaining bits of U-235 out of those old depleted tails.
That is incredible. And then rounding out the DOE money, we have Urenco USA.
Right. They are expanding the capacity of the only commercial uranium enrichment facility currently operating in the U.S., which is down in Eunice, New Mexico.
And it's a big expansion.
A nearly 50% increase. They're adding 2.1 million SWU, or separative work units, to their capacity.
So what is the takeaway for the listener with all this enrichment news?
The takeaway is that the market is actively pricing in a significantly tighter term market for primary U308 over the next 3 to 7 years.
So because you can build all the centrifuge cascades you want, but you still need to feed them.
Precisely. Every new advanced reactor megawatt requires fuel, and the West is racing to build the infrastructure to convert and enrich it. But that raw material has to come from somewhere.
Which segues perfectly into our second story. Moving from enrichment down into state policy and the upstream scramble.
The New York announcement.
Yes. Story 2. On Tuesday, June 17th, New York State published a new build nuclear options paper and officially launched what they are calling the Nuclear Reliability Backbone.
The political signal here is profound.
It really is.
We are talking about state-level industrial policy from a Democratic-led state. This effectively widens the political coalition for new nuclear.
Right. They're positioning themselves to compete with states like Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Texas.
Because of the hyperscalers again, those data centers require firm baseload power. You can't run a gigawatt AI server farm purely on intermittent wind and solar. New York realizes they need nuclear to capture that tax base.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for the listener. State policy papers are incredibly cheap to write.
True.
Real megawatts take billions of dollars and decades of permitting, environmental reviews, community pushback. How do we know this nuclear reliability backbone isn't just hot air from politicians?
It is a totally valid skepticism, but you don't look at the politicians to see if it's real, you follow the money upstream. And real-world capital is moving aggressively in the mining sector right now to prepare for this demand.
Okay, give me some examples of that capital moving.
Look at NextGen Energy's Rook I project. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission just issued a site preparation and construction license for Rook I in Saskatchewan.
Getting a CNSC license is no joke.
It is a massive milestone. This is a mine that is expected to produce 14 million kilograms of U3O8 annually for 24 years. You do not spend the capital to navigate that regulatory framework unless you see concrete demand on the horizon.
Right, and it's not just greenfield projects like NextGen. We are seeing major M&A activity. Cameco just made a big move.
Yes, Cameco agreed to acquire TEPCO's 5% stake in the Cigar Lake joint venture.
For how much?
$115.75 million. That brings Cameco's total ownership of Cigar Lake to over 57%.
So they are consolidating their grip on the highest grade assets on the planet.
Exactly, and the mid-tiers are moving too. ISO Energy is acquiring Toro Energy for $49 million to secure the Wiluna uranium project in Australia.
So to synthesize all this for the listener, utilities might be stalling and playing games on the spot market, but the mining companies and the big investors are just aggressively consolidating Tier 1 assets.
Because they know the truth. When state policies turn into concrete reactor builds, the uranium supply simply won't be there without these long-term investments happening today.
Which brings us to the final story of the week, Story 3. And this is highly sensitive, so we are going to strictly stick to the verified reporting from our sources at the Times of Israel and Al Jazeera.
Right, maintaining total neutrality here. This is about the geopolitical tail risks.
Exactly. This is the standoff regarding Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. Following the recent U.S.-Israel war with Iran, negotiations regarding this material have hit a major roadblock.
The reporting indicates that Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has issued a directive stating that Iran will not send its enriched uranium abroad.
And just to clarify the amounts we are talking about, the IAEA estimates they have roughly 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. The U.S. has demanded it be exported, but Iran is refusing.
So instead of a handover, the diplomatic channels are working on a compromise. The negotiations are shifting toward in-country downblending.
Downblending meaning what exactly?
Meaning they would chemically dilute the 60% stockpile back down to 3.67%. And this would all happen under IAEA verification.
Got it. And there's a timeline attached to this, right?
Yeah. Additionally, the parties are negotiating a 15-year halt on Iranian uranium enrichment. According to the reports, the U.S. was asking for 20 years, Iran offered 10, and they are settling somewhere around 15.
So what does this all mean for the uranium market? How does this geopolitical chess match actually impact the listener tracking these supply chains?
Well, primarily, it caps the upside of any immediate Iran resolution trade.
Because the material stays in the region.
Exactly. Because this near weapons-grade material remains in the Middle East, it reintroduces this persistent, slow-burn tail risk. It hangs over regional supply dynamics, shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz, and just the overall security of global fuel cycles.
So it's a massive blind spot for the spot market.
It is the most important geopolitical input. The market is currently failing to fully price into that $85 spot price. The spot price is completely ignoring it.
But the institutional buyers aren't ignoring it, are they?
No, not at all. This risk is quietly showing up downstream. You see it in the conversion premia, and you see it steepening the long-term contracted curve. Buyers are willing to pay a premium to secure term contracts from stable jurisdictions because they see this tail risk in the Middle East hardening.
Wow. Okay, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. Let's wrap this up.
It really all comes back to that initial disconnect.
Right. The $85 spot price is essentially a sleeping giant. The real narrative of the week was all about structural acceleration downstream.
You have hyperscalers securing their own fuel through Oklo, states like New York launching industrial nuclear policies, billions of DOE dollars flowing into Western enrichment, and geopolitical risks hardening in the Middle East.
So for the listener tracking this, what should they be watching for next week?
Two big things. Keep an eye out for the DOE's July 4th pilot reactor criticality milestone. That technical data will be important. And also watch for the June 30th end state for Centris's current HALEU Phase 3 contract.
Fantastic. I want to leave everyone with a final lingering question to ponder, building on that sprott tale of two markets concept we talked about earlier.
It's the big question.
Right now, utilities are surviving by burning through their legacy contracts and playing a game of chicken with the producers. But what happens on the day the entire grid realizes there is literally no secondary supply left to tap?
When the pantry is actually empty.
Yes. When the pantry is empty, the new greenfield mines are still 5 years away from producing, and the AI data centers are demanding their power today. Who blinks first when the lights actually threaten to go out?
I think we both know the answer to that.
We probably do. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking past the ticker tape and into the structure of the market. We will see you next week.